Now on Mississippi Insight, Mississippi's giant house party is underway. We'll preview the political speakers on the schedule, including some likely gubernatorial contenders. Also, we'll explain why moves in Washington to cut funding for SNAP benefits could have a dire impact in Mississippi. And Brandon residents speak their minds on whether to relocate a Confederate monument from the downtown square. That and more straight ahead this week on Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us for this July 27th edition of Insight. We're midway through the Mississippi summer, and that means we are getting ready for some heated politics at the 2025 Neshoba County Fair. Voters from across the state traditionally gather for the fair's lively political stump speeches. Since its founding in the 1880s, the fair has become a premier political platform for office holders and hopefuls. The speeches begin at 9:30 Wednesday morning with a trio of local politicians. 8th Circuit District Attorney Stephen Kilgore, Senator Lane Taylor of the 18th District, and Representative Scott Bounds from District 44. Then at 10 o'clock, we will hear from Insurance Commissioner and State Fire Marshal Mike Cheney. And then Mississippi's 3rd District Congressman Michael Guest will take the podium on Founders Square. Ag and Commerce Commissioner Andy Gibson will likely pitch his bid for the governor's office in 2 years. He's followed by Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, who has expressed an interest in the governor's race but has not formally declared. The speeches continue Thursday with State Supreme Court Justices Jennifer Branning, Kenny Griffiths, and Chief Justice Mike Randolph. Public Service Commissioner DeKeither Stamps follows at 9:30. Then it's State Treasurer David McRae, followed by Transportation Commissioner Willie Simmons. Secretary of State Michael Watson kicks off the 10 o'clock hour on Thursday, yet another potential gubernatorial candidate. Attorney General Lynn Fitch speaks at 10:10. Then it's House Speaker Jason White, and finally Governor Tate Reeves will close out the roster. He is scheduled to speak at 10:30. We should know that 2 possible candidates for governor will not be speaking this year. That's State Auditor Shad White and Pine Belt businessman Thomas Duff. Of course, you can count on full coverage of the speeches next week on 12 News. So we can expect 2 things Wednesday and Thursday: hot political rhetoric and steaming hot temperatures. I talked recently with Storm Team 12 meteorologist Roberto Zamora about our weather prospects as we endure the second half of summer. We put this together for our new streaming app, WJTV Plus. Where do we stand right now when we're talking with the tropics at this time?
Well, the tropics, they've been fairly quiet. We do have one little system, and it's kind of deja vu compared to what we saw last week with Invest 93L. There's a system, a surface low going through the northern end of the Gulf, but only a 10% chance of development through the next 2 to 7 days currently. And personally, I don't see it spinning up into anything. If it does, last minute, it'll be struggling, and it could get to the tropical depression limit, but that's right before it could make landfall on that Texas coastline. So for us right now, it's just going to be a rainmaker. It's just going to increase our rain chances.
And the rain's something that we need. I mean, we've been in this heat wave right now, and today we got a little bit of rain. Not everyone got hit with rain. I know at my house it didn't get anything, but driving into work I got the rain. But it's a little bit cooler than it's been for most of the week.
Yeah, for the majority of the week, we've had extreme heat warnings and heat advisories. With those extreme heat warnings, that's where we could see those feels-like temperatures closer to that 115-degree margin. So yeah, the rain is the one thing that's really just going to cool us down out there. And it's all, the farther south you are, the better coverage of rain you're going to have, which isn't surprising since that surface low is closer to the northern end of the Gulf. So the farther north Mississippi you go, you'll get a few showers, but just not as good at coverage. So that's the one unfortunate thing with this time of the year. It's either we're going to have that really bad heat affecting our area, or the only thing that's going to cool us off right now, it looks like, is those rain chances increasing. So we get a little bit momentarily where we're going to see those temperatures drop. But unfortunately for next week, as we wrap up that last week of July, the rain chances drop again, and most likely the heat advisories and possibly extreme heat warnings could come back into our area.
And the rain we're getting is more like pop-up showers. We're going to get hit and hit and go.
Yeah, it's a scattered situation, so it's hit or miss for most areas. We did see better coverage farther down to our south and a better line develop with some heavier downpours that came through. But majority for our southern counties here around the metro, it was a little bit more scattered, and then the farther north you go, it was a little bit more isolated there. So
remind us, as we're in this hurricane season, almost 2 months into the season, and what they're anticipating for the season.
Well, we were definitely anticipating an above average one before the season started, and that could still pan out. Right now, we're just at the end of July. Our peak is at September 10th, so we still have all of August to go through, the peak keep on rising. So as we go throughout August, especially into August, going into early September, that's where you really see the probability of major hurricanes developing. So definitely something we're still going to keep an eye out. For now, it's really no surprise that we haven't had too many. We've only had three named storms, and all of them were just tropical or just tropical systems that spun up real quick, but nothing that got up to those hurricane limits. So
When we see this kind of heat that we're having, does that give us any kind of indication what we can expect come late August into September?
not typically, because with the heat, of course, it has influence on our air temperatures. But when it comes to all the tropics, it really depends more on the temperatures in our ocean.
Hmm.
That's what it depends on. And of course, there's also Saharan dust that still has a factor there too, as well. And the Bermuda High. It's another thing that people don't really pay attention to as much. But if you're a meteorologist, it's one of those things you look into too. But so right now, the heat is just something we deal with in Mississippi. It's just, that time of the year where it's just hot, humid, and just unfortunate. So hopefully we get a better cool down in the coming months. We haven't had any front really pass over us. It's been all farther up to our north.
And we always talk about people preparing for these storms. What should they be doing now to be prepared for what might come?
Yeah, so later on in September, I mean, here in Jackson, we're a little bit more inland, of course. We could still see that system ramp up and come into us. But for now, there's no immediate threat. There's nothing to freak out over. It's just one of those situations where you pay attention to the weather. You just check up and see what your local meteorologist is telling you and what they're seeing, especially in the tropical systems. Because usually we can see them way far in advance, multiple days in advance. So you have plenty of time always to prepare, figure out what the game plan is if you need to have one and anything like that.
And how important is it to pay attention to what you guys are saying and those alerts that you send out to folks?
It's always good to know what's going on in your neck of the woods for tomorrow, today, or just the next 8 as well. So it's always good, in my opinion, to check up on the weather because, everybody has to go outside at one point of the day. So it's always good just to check up and make sure you know what's going on.
And I know we're getting into the football season. The kids are out there practicing and everything else.
Oh,
We're talking
yeah.
about the heat. What's the warning for folks out there?
Yeah, the heat, and it's the silent killer. That's what it's always called. It's where we have, unfortunately, the most amount of deaths on average for this for the summers or just in general. The heat waves that come through can really just be because, like I said, silent. You don't see it. It just happens. You can get that heat exhaustion, even heat strokes, if you get into a bad situation. So, I mean, drinking plenty of water is definitely the number one way of going about it. Make sure you're hydrating beforehand before you go out to practice. I remember when I was in Houston, football camps during the summer, it was hot. I've experienced it, and the number one way is just making sure you're just drinking enough fluids. Because if you're gonna be in those fluids, you'll be fine. Of course, they're gonna have water at those practices and everything like that. And hopefully, with the rain coming through, it'll keep us a little bit cooler for a few days. But unfortunately, it's just the heat's gonna return the second those rain
And you're
showers
typically the hottest part of your day is between what hours?
usually, let's say between 12 to 4 o'clock. That little frame is where we really see the biggest peak in our temperatures, especially later on, closer to, let's say, 3 or 4 for sure. Because yesterday we got up to about 99 degrees on our Wednesday, I believe, or 98, right around there. And it was a peak, like right around between 3 to 4 p.m.
And so if you're going to do anything, you do it early morning
Oh, yeah.
or late at the
Get
early
out
evening.
there early, do it in the evening, try to avoid, of course, the hottest part of the day.
And that's the best way to stay safe.
Exactly. Staying safe, but most important thing.
All right. So, Roberto, always good talking to you. Thank you for the
Always
advice there.
good.
And so that's good
Yeah.
information out there as far as, and we'll be talking with you more as we get more into the season
Of
about what's
course,
happening
yeah,
weather-wise.
especially once we get closer to those tropical peaks in
Yeah,
September.
very good advice there. Hey, as we're talking about the heat, that's a very important topic that we've been talking about. Mississippi summers are very difficult at times, especially when you're talking about the heat. And you can imagine that there are some people who don't have air conditioning that live in that situation without air. And Laura Myers is a pulmonary critical care physician at Kaiser Permanente, and she's has some key guidance for coping with excessive heat. Here's what she has to say.
Heat is a growing problem in the United States, but really across the world. And people who, let's say, don't have access to air conditioning or can't afford to run their AC all the time, have other options. So it's important to be thinking about hydration status, so how much fluids you're taking in, making sure that you're urinating as much as normal, and thinking about access to fans. Fans only work when the relative humidity is actually low, as well as temperatures under 95 or so degrees. And then alternatively, some counties or municipalities offer cooling centers. Usually public places like libraries will be open, but obviously that's just during daytime hours, sometimes just weekday hours. You could potentially think creatively, to find areas like parks. Parks are actually 1 to 7 degrees cooler than areas that have a lot of concrete because the concrete actually traps the heat. You can potentially go out earlier in the morning as opposed to the heat of the afternoon. The hottest hour tends to be 4 p.m. And just really trying to make sure you're wearing, light, loose clothing and making sure you're with people so that if you're really starting to, feel the negative health effects of heat, that you can take care of yourself, get indoors, and kind of recover quickly without needing a visit to the emergency room, let's say. So some of the symptoms of heat exhaustion are quite vague, but kind of general fatigue, headache. People might start to get confused or dizzy. Their muscles might start to cramp up, or you feel nauseous. That's really when you need to start getting inside, starting to hydrate, and you can use cold ice packs or towels with cold water to really start to cool down. Get in front of a fan, let's say. And then when people start to get dangerously hot, that's the severe headache, the feeling like your heart is racing, vomiting, starting to lose consciousness. That's when you really, really need to seek care and come into an urgent care and an emergency room.
You can download WJTV Plus for free on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire TV right now. It's a great way to catch up with Mississippi Insight when you'd rather sleep in on Sunday mornings. Check it out today. Up next, SNAP benefits and Mississippians in need. Mississippi Insight continues in a moment. We'll spend some time this morning talking about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Its benefits are a lifeline for more than 400,000 Mississippians. But new federal and state cuts could push thousands off the rolls. We look at who's most at risk, what's changing, and why local advocates say the impact could be devastating for families and communities across the state. Now, more than 384,000 people in Mississippi receive monthly SNAP benefits. That's about 1 in 8 residents here. A policy analysis by the National Association of Counties finds that these changes could remove millions from SNAP and leave families forced to choose between food, the internet, or other essentials. Let's take a look at this. The state's participation rate tops the national average even as enrollment has declined from pandemic highs. More than half of Black residents are eligible for SNAP compared to about 1 in 5 white residents. Households with children, especially single mothers, are most likely to qualify. Now, new federal proposals could force states to shoulder a bigger share of costs by 2028, potentially straining Mississippi's budget. The program, commonly known as food stamps, is currently fully funded by the federal government. Hilary Seligman is a professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. She studies the effect of food insecurity on health from birth to older age and the impact of federal nutrition policies on food insecurity in the U.S. Dr. Seligman spoke recently with the news nonprofit Sciline.
According to our most recent numbers, about 42 million people in the United States receive SNAP benefits. These are people in every municipality and community and county across the United States. Almost 80% of them are either older adults, disabled, or children, which means that they don't really have the capacity to work to bring in money for food. And so they're either supported by other people in the household or they're being supported by SNAP benefits to get the food that they need. We expect that the big, beautiful bill is going to reduce substantially the number of people who are enrolled in SNAP benefits. This is for 3 reasons. One is that there are changes to work requirements that is going to make it more difficult for some Americans to show that they're eligible for SNAP benefits. The second is because the bill will increase the amount of money that states, instead of the federal government, are paying to provide SNAP benefits. And that means there will likely be reductions in the capacity of the state to support people. And then the third is because it will reduce benefit levels over time. And with reduced benefit levels, people often feel as if it's not even worth it to enroll anymore. Well, it's important to understand that many times it's the same households that are receiving both SNAP benefits and Medicaid benefits. As a matter of fact, the majority of people enrolled in SNAP are also enrolled in Medicaid. So with this new big, beautiful bill, you're seeing simultaneous reductions in access to SNAP benefits and Medicaid benefits, which means increased pressure on the household budget, both to afford healthcare and to afford food. And that just puts low-income households in the United States at really high pressure to make ends meet from month to month. We know from a lot of research that it takes more money to afford a healthy diet in the United States. And when people have more money in their household food budget, they tend to purchase healthier foods to eat at home. That's not surprising because healthier foods cost more. One way families bring more money into their food budgets is by enrolling in the SNAP program. And that's why households that are enrolled in SNAP tend to have better diet quality. They eat healthier foods. And when you eat healthier foods, you also tend to be healthier. And this is why people enrolled in SNAP report being healthier than people who are not enrolled in SNAP. This is why SNAP gives us a double benefit. It's helping both support improved healthy diets for people in the US and also improved health for people in the US. Households are going to have to make really difficult choices. There are only two ways to substantially decrease your household food budget. You can change the quantity of food you eat, and that often means going hungry, or you can change the quality of the food you eat, shifting your food purchases towards foods that are higher in fat and higher in sugar. And we know foods that are higher in fat and higher than sugar, even though they cost less, they tend to create risk for obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic diseases that are big, big challenges for the health of the US. One of the important things about SNAP benefits is that when we distribute SNAP benefits, those benefits tend to be spent in local communities almost immediately, and almost all of them. In fact, 97% of SNAP benefits are spent in local communities within the month. And what that means is that local communities are benefiting from those dollars spent, whether it is retailers and cashiers in grocery stores, whether it's agricultural workers, whether it's truck drivers. Putting money through the SNAP programs helps our local communities and helps our agricultural system to thrive.
In a moment, the city of Brandon debates the fate of a decades-old monument to Confederate soldiers. It's Mississippi Insight only on 12 News. On Tuesday, August 4th, Brandon leaders host another public comments period on the Confederate Memorial on the downtown square. It's been quite some time since the debate on that statue has risen to such intensity. 12 News' Alicia Banks spoke with Brandonites on both sides of the debate.
A 37-foot-tall Confederate monument has been standing in the middle of downtown Brandon since 1907. That's the year the Brandon chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy put it there. Monday evening, 5 residents spoke to the Brandon Board of Aldermen and Mayor Butch Lee. They shared strongly different opinions on whether the statue should stay or go.
It is a slap in the face for the African American. We need to get rid of it. It needs to be in the cemetery or put it in the museum. He talking about how much money it costs to move it, how much it takes from us as Black Americans. He talking about they can't rewrite nothing. Well, they can't rewrite history when we were slaves, but they still looking down on us because of the color of our skin.
Some see the monument as a symbol of racial oppression. Others say it honors the service and sacrifice of Confederate soldiers.
The dedications that went on all over the South at that time when they dedicated monuments had nothing to do with hate. They didn't want to bring back the war. They didn't want to do away with the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. No, they wanted to honor their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, their husbands, who fought for what they thought was right and for what they knew the Constitution said was right. And it's that simple. You're honoring men who fought, who did their duty. And you cannot judge history from 100+ years ago by today's standards.
The board did not take action Monday night. They plan to continue the debate at their next meeting on August 4th. In Brandon, Delisha Banks, 12 News.
If you have comments or questions about today's show or suggestion for an interview or segment, just drop us a line. Email our producers. The address is news@WJTV.com. We'll be back next weekend with speech excerpts from Neshoba and more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.